Monday Night Baseball. Tonight, from Exhibition Stadium in Toronto, the Kansas City Royals against the Toronto Blue Jays. And this ABC Sports exclusive. Al Michaels, joined now by Earl Weaver. And Earl, we documented the birth and the development of the Blue Jays on the pregame show. They're in first place right now. What's your assessment of their early season success? How have they done it?
Well, it's no fluke, and if people have done their homework, they've seen them up there in a lot of categories. Offensively, they're tied for second in the league at hitting with a .274 batting average. One of the surprising things, they're tied with Baltimore for the home run lead in the American League at 94. They're tied with Baltimore for the least amount of errors. Also, they're in second place to Texas as far as pitching is concerned. And when you're up there in those categories, and you got the type of ball players that can do a little running, you're going to be in the race. And for people that think it's a fluke, I think they're going to be surprised because Toronto's going to be in it almost all year long.
Well, when you come that far that fast, a lot of people will say, well, they'll wake up in August or September, realize where they are, and then fold. Why do you not see that happening?
Well, because some of these ball players have been here 3 or 4 or 5 years. They're designated hitters. They're veterans, and Jorge Arda and Cliff Johnson. So they're going to be there. It reminds me of the ball club in Oakland, the club that come over from Kansas City that struggled for a few years, but when Reggie Jackson, Rick Monday, Sal Bando, Gene Tennis started to come in their own, got 4 or 5 years under their belt in the big leagues. They were the stars. They also, Toronto also has a type of pitching staff that you can compare. Liel and Steve and Clancy and Gott, or pitchers like Blue Moon Odom used to be. And
the Royals leading off the speedster Willie Wilson. UL Washington follows him, and then hitting at .364, the great man George Brett. The DH is Hal McRae. He bats fourth. He's hitting .318. Then the slugging first baseman Willie Aikens. After Aikens, the right fielder. Note that the right fielder Amos Otis. Then comes steady going Frank White. Pat Sheridan beat the Yankees out of a game recently. Bats next. And finally, John Wathan, the catcher.
And defensively for the Blue Jays, the infield, Willie Upshaw, has great range at first. They're strong in the middle with Garcia and Griffin. Orge platoons with Mullenix at third. Garth to start tonight. The outfield tonight, Barry Bonnell in left, Lloyd Mosby vastly improved in center, George Bell, up from the minors a week ago, is in right. Buck Martinez does the catching. He platoons there with Ernie Witt. And the pitcher is Jim Clancy. There is the Blue Jay mascot. Just about every team now with a mascot. B.J. Birdie is what they call the Blue Jay mascot on a warm night in Toronto. The temperature here today got up into the 90s. We're still in the 80s, and here we go as the Royals meet the Blue Jays with Willie Wilson to lead off for Kansas City, and the first pitch of the game over for a strike. Wilson had a 17-game hitting streak snapped yesterday. He came in as a pinch runner late in the game, got one at-bat, and did not get a hit. Down to second, and Garcia throws him out. So Willie Wilson is taken care of.
Clancy seemed to go right after Willie the way that they pitched him in the World Series 2 or 3 years ago with hard stuff up. Clancy's one of the hard throwers in the American League, and he can lower the boom.
The numbers on Clancy, he doesn't walk very many, nor does he strike out very many. And UL Washington is the batter, a switch hitter. And for the moment, we want to welcome those of you watching the White Sox against the Cleveland Indians. We are just underway at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. 1 out in the first inning, and UL Washington fouling away a fastball from Clancy, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. Washington missed 5 games last week with a shoulder injury. The Royals have been hurt severely by injuries, but they're not going to get a lot of sympathy from some of the other clubs in the West. in particular the California Angels, who've been decimated. That's line to left field and right at Fennell, who makes the catch to the out. So good wood for UL, but right at the left fielder. And we have two gone with George Brett coming up.
Well, speaking of injuries, they missed this fellow when he was out with the broken toe, but Amos Otis is a money ball player, and he's a guy that helps this ball club really go. He's a guy that is always there when you need him in the jam in the late innings, and I think they missed Amos when he was out as much as anybody.
Otis got back into the lineup this weekend. Now, Brett has feasted on Clancy. He has also feasted on Toronto pitching since the Blue Jays came into the league in 1977. Brett hitting .364 with 17 homers and 57 RBIs. And to put those numbers in perspective, especially the 17 homers and 57 ribbies, he's missed 25 games this year. Drilled to right field, but good wood to no avail as Bell makes the catch. So Washington and Brett both hit it hard, but they're gone, as are the Royals in order. And after a half, it's his consecutive game streak in the American League right now, second to Dwight Evans. The Royals defensively, Akins, White, Washington, and Brett in the infield. The outfield, notice that Amos Otis is in right field, Wilson is in center, and that's the way it will be for the balance of the season, according to DeKalser. Pat Sheridan, the rookie, is in left. John Watson is back of the plate, and the pitcher is Larry Gura, who's had a very interesting season. Gura started the year by winning his first 4. He was 4-0. Then he lost not only 7 in a row, but he lost 7 consecutive starts. And since then, he's been off and on. As you can see, giving up a little bit more than a hit per inning. Hasn't walked very many, hasn't struck out very many. He'll nibble, work the corners, won't overpower you, and he beat the Blue Jays last week.
And one thing about Larry Gura, he's been a winning pitcher since he's been in the major leagues, and somehow or another, by the time the season's over, he always manages to have more wins than he does losses.
He's going to have a hard time, though, this year, and he realizes it. He continues to have trouble with location. Never had that problem before.
Damaso Garcia has been one of the hottest Blue Jays. Had a 21-game hitting streak snapped yesterday at Comiskey Park in Chicago. That's the longest streak in the majors this season, and it was a Toronto club record, eclipsing his own mark. Grounded down to White at second, and Garcia is gone. So Frank White throws out his opposite number. 1 away in the bottom of the first inning, and Lloyd Mosby is the batter. Those of you watching the Chicago-Cleveland game, you know that Blyleven was injured and warming up. So Eichelberger is allowed all the time he needs to get ready. Juan will be on the mound for Cleveland tonight. As soon as he is ready, those of you who will be watching the White Sox and Indians, we will take you back for the start of that one. Lloyd Mosby looks at a strike, and the count is 0-1.
Getting back to that control, Al and Howard, I think that when you lose 7 in a row, you lose a little bit of confidence on that mound, and you try to get a little too fine. I think his control will come back to him. 1 victory here, 1 victory there really does a lot for you.
0-2. And he is such a key man because Kansas City's pitching staff is really in a shambles right now. With Dennis Leonard gone, Vida Blue hasn't won a game this year. DeKalser doesn't know what to do.
That's been their problem, their pitching, but I think this fellow will bounce back. Just as I said, he's been a winning pitcher since he's been there, and he'll continue to be a winning pitcher because he knows what to do with the ball on the mound.
Let me tell you, if this club's pitching straightens out, they can run away from their division.
2-2 the count. Now look at the starting pitchers. Now throw out Bud Black. And you got Graybeard, Splittorff, and Perry, and Renko, and Gura.
Perry doesn't want to be reminded of his last start.
Grounded fair inside the third baseline. Mosby has excellent speed. Sheridan plays the carom perfectly, and Lloyd has a double. And for the Indian White Sox viewers, we'll send you back to Cleveland now. Don Drysdale.
Well, that wasn't a bad pitch by Gura. Mosby just went right with it and got it right inside the third base line. The ball wasn't hit that good, but in exactly the right spot. Now, Gura tries to get people to hit ground balls like that, but you hope they go at somebody.
Mosby is a developing ball player, as you have remarked, Earl. Often you can just see him grow as a player in that stroke. hitting the ball exactly where it was pitched is proof of it.
I don't think there's any doubt about it, and a bunch of the young players on this Toronto ball club are in that same category. They've just got enough time in the major leagues to start to blossom.
The batter is Garth Iorg with one of the strangest stances you'll ever see, and it pays off with a base hit in the left field. Mosby will be waved in. Iorg takes a wide turn and holds. It's 1-0 Toronto.
Now there was a real bad pitch. That's a pitch that I didn't see Gura make when I was sitting in the dugout watching him pitch against us. He got it up. Good swing. Just seemed to be standing there waiting on the fastball. Line drive into left field. Gonna score a run.
So Iorg is at first base. Toronto leading 1-0. And Cliff Johnson.
Heathcliff,
as he's known here. He's become very popular here in a hurry. And the first pitch is a strike. They picked him up from Oakland for Al Woods, who didn't pan out. In fact, Woods is now back in the Toronto system in the minors. So they got him for nothing is what it amounted to. And he's done nothing against Gura, as you can see. 1 for 19, so he's had a lot of problems with Larry through his career. But he has been very instrumental in the Blue Jays' success. He fouls it back, and there's no question what he was trying to do there, as he oft-times does.
That's the way he swings at the ball. And when you hit 16 home runs for a ball club and you're not in there daily, Cliff is playing a lot against right-handers, but not every day. And when you hit 16 home runs, you're going to be a popular person.
Cliff Johnson.
Look at that slugging percentage over the last 20 starts. That's a hot hitter.
He leads the league in slugging percentage at .561 right now. And he's hit home runs in each of his last 2 games, Saturday and yesterday at Comiskey. Outside.
In the pitch before last, I was surprised that Gura challenged him up. If you throw hard, that's the place to pitch, Johnson, but if you're not that 88 to 92 mile an hour thrower, it's tough to get it by him.
Anybody knows how to pitch to Johnson, it's Gura. With Cliff 1 for 19. 1-2 pitch. Ground Cosell and Earl Weaver with you. The Toronto Blue Jays on top in the American League East. The Kansas City Royals, despite being a game under 500, very much in contention in the American League West. Before a good crowd at Exhibition Stadium. The Blue Jays, coming into the league in 1977, their 7th season, have never finished anywhere but last. Last year, of course, technically they finished in a tie for 6th with Cleveland. As you look at Dick Hauser, the manager of the Kansas City Royals, who took over late in the 1981 season, spent the 1 year, of course, with the Yankees.
Interesting thing about that shot of Dick in the dugout. Manager sits in the dugout. He can't see the scoreboard. Weaver used to come running out to find out what the count was.
In the first base dugout, there's no scoreboard that is visible without you walking out. You have to stay right on top of the count.
Hal McRae hitting it into left center field for a base hit, as Bennell cuts it off and gets it back in. So the Royals have their first base runner on a single by McRae. Not only can't you see the scoreboard, but I've noticed that every once in a while, about every 3rd or 4th pitch, they take the count off the board, either run a spot or put up some information or a replay on it.
Well, that's to foil you.
Yes, I know it is. And before the night is too much further along, I will be foiled. I guarantee it.
Well, when I was sitting in that dugout, I used to have to run out 8-10 times a game to check on the count.
Willie Aikens, the batter, puts it a strike. Now, there it is from the dugout, but that's from just in front of the dugout. As you can see, our cameraman has a much better angle than a man sitting on the bench as you look at the board. Aikens rips it to center field. That's a base hit. Mosby fields on a hop and gets it back in. So a couple of solid singles by McRae and Aikens. And the Royals have runners at first and second. Now, 3 umpires tonight. George Maloney is working the plate. Bill Kunkel and Darrell Cousins are working the bases. The 4th umpire, John Shulock, is not here because of a death in his family.
Oddly, just after I had lunch today, I ran into John Shulock, who was on his way to leave town, and he said, "Please give my regards to Earl Weaver." And I said, "John, it'll be the first time."
John was one of the real hard workers. There is one of the real hard workers in the American League. And he's dedicated to his job, and if he throws you out one night, it's forgotten the next night.
Amos Otis up. Now the right fielder. Remember, for 2 years he resisted moving to right.
Fouls this one away, and the count 0-1.
The manager had wanted to take him out of center because Willie Wilson has utterly matchless speed. When I spoke with Amos today, he's still talking about his old trade from the Mets, Joey Foy. I said, right field, huh, Amos? He said, now I'm glad about it.
Well, they tried it a couple of years ago, as you say, Howard. They moved him to left field at that time when Jim Fry was there.
That's right. The correction is right.
He was not particularly happy, and Wilson, in his own way, Willie at that point in his career felt a little uncomfortable because he and Amos are good friends.
They now have 3 center fielders playing the outfield,
and that certainly helps.
That's especially on the artificial surface in Kansas City. It's almost impossible to drive a ball into the gap between or among the 2 and 3 of them.
That's a good point. Don't sell Pat Sheridan short, the man who's in left field tonight.
And the 2 base hits this inning, if we go back to the last 2 outs of the first inning, UL Washington lined hard to left field and George Brett lined hard to right. So that's 4 straight real hard hit balls off of Clancy.
Toronto leading 1-0 in the second inning. 2-1 the count on Otis with nobody out. Very high, and the count 3-1. So Clancy digging himself a hole in the second inning.
Well, there's a point of 4 straight balls being hit hard and Clancy seeming to try to overthrow.
McRae is at second, and that's Akins at first. Neither man will challenge Carl Lewis. Nobody out. Full count, 3-2. So let's see if Hauser decides to send the runners here. You run the rest, of course. As I say, neither man is speedy, and Otis strikes out a lot.
Well, with Willie on first, I think they just might concede the runner to third because to me it looks like you got a cinch out. If Otis should strike out, it's a double play if you throw the ball to second base.
Runners hold, and the pitch, down he goes. That's a 90-mile-an-hour fastball thrown up there by Jim Clancy for his first strikeout. So Otis is gone as Jim reaches back for something a little extra at a spot where he needed a strikeout. One gone.
Well, he's made problems for himself, Alfalfa, forgive me. He's been tinkering around with a change of speed pitch because he felt that they were just looking for his fastball, which is his essential pitch, his great pitch. And in tinkering with the change of speed pitch, he goes back to the fastball and suddenly encounters control trouble.
Frank White hits it high in the air to center field. Mosby is there, circling around now. It's Freese and makes the catch in the runner's hole. And look at Mosby's arm.
My goodness. McRae had no thoughts. No thoughts of trying
Not
to get the
in the remotest sense. White hitting it to straightaway center field. The breeze is blowing, and it's really picking up now, whipping the flags. Basically, from the left field foul pole to the right field foul pole is the direction in which it is going. So Mosby had to circle around underneath it. There they are, as the wind has picked up considerably.
Clancy hasn't gotten out of this inning yet, but this team has a chemistry about it as a team, Earl. That's the thing that impresses me. They fit together. They're not just a bunch of, the very point Dave Collins, the ex-Red and ex-Yankee, who had such an unhappy year in New York last year, made to me in a talk I had with him early. He said, the Yankees last year, 14 new faces. You just can't push a button
that hurts.
And get a team.
Texas went through that previous season when they made all those trades in spring training, and no one knew each other.
But
now that they're together, they're starting to play some good baseball.
Collins said this is a team. There's a chemistry here. We mesh.
Pat Sheridan at the plate with 2 on and 2 out. 2 balls and no strikes to count. And Sheridan hits it in the air to left field. Fennell is there, and he makes the catch. Inning at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto, Ontario, a stadium built basically for football. You'll see a lot of empty seats in the outfield. Right there, you're looking at the seats back of the plate. And there's an overhead view from deepest, darkest center field. Symmetrical park, 330 down the lines, 375 to the alleys, and 400 to straightaway center. Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League and the Toronto Blizzard of the North American Soccer League play here as well. Barry Bonnell, the batter, looks at a strike as we start the bottom of the second. Toronto leading 1-0.
With the wind blowing like it is, too, the ball's going to jump to right field tonight. The wind really is a factor here, depending on which way it's blowing.
In the air to left field, wind or no wind. Bonnell has hit that one off the wall when it looked like it was going to go out and settles for a double. The wind kept that one in. So a double by Bonnell. That's 3 hits from the first 5 Blue Jay hitters. Gura having troubles early. Howard talked to him before the game.
Larry, in a nutshell, one of the most consistent pitchers in the league over the recent years. Suddenly you're struggling. What's wrong?
Well, it's been a little bit of everything. I started out, on ball fire. I was 4-0, but the last 4 games, I didn't get any runs. But the main problem has been location. I haven't been able to put the ball where I wanted to.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, he's given up a single and 2 doubles. Got out of the first inning after he gave up a run when Johnson hit into a double play.
If it weren't for the wind, that would have been another run. That ball was definitely hit good enough to go out of most ballparks.
No question. George Bell is the batter. Bell spent the season in the minors until last week when he was called up, and they dispensed with Hoskin Powell. And they're using him in the outfield tonight in right field. He can also, of course, DH if necessary. Time called as Gura was ready to deliver.
George Bell is the center of a story that reflects Bobby Cox's whole theory of platooning and managing. He was brought up, he was a red-hot hitter, power hitter. I'll continue after this pitch.
He gets jammed and bounces it to third. Brett looks the runner back, and his throw gets by Aikens. That will send Bonnell to third. He'll be held there, and down to second goes Bell. So Brett's throw simply in the dirt. Didn't have enough on it, and he'll get the error. George staying with a hop. Brief glance at the runner. He wasn't moving anywhere. And then Aikens can't lend assistance.
Nope. The throw hit far enough in front of Willie. You'll see it there. It's a high bounce. Not to say anything really bad against Willie, but the majority of the first basemen in the American League, Eddie Murray, Cecil Cooper would come up with that ball, and those are the kind of things that you have to do.
And get your body behind the ball in a situation like that. Tell it like it is, Earl. You're not saying anything terrible about Willie.
In order to get the body, you come off of the ball, but
so you come off the bag, but you at least prevent what happened.
Oh, definitely.
The batter is Upshaw, who pops it up in foul ground back of third. Brett has a play only because the wind made it playable.
Getting back to the throw, Howard, Eddie Murray and we'll say Cecil Cooper, just 2 that come to mind real quick. Possibly the young fellow over at New York, too, Mattingly. They have the ability to stay on that bag and stay with the ball and come up with it. I'll tell you, it's a lot better to come off of that base and get your body in front of it. Keep men on first and second in a double play in order.
Well, Aikens has had a lot of problems this year. He has 9 errors in half a season, which is a large number for first baseman. In fact, in a game last Monday night in Kansas City, he made 3 errors against the Blue Jays. What a night he had. He made 3 errors. He was 0 for 5 and struck out 3 times.
Here I watched him in the Puerto Rican League. They wound up benching him. He's having a terrible time.
He's not noted for his defensive powers. And really going back to recognizing your incapabilities. Maybe that's something Willie should do, is learn to come off of that bag and block it rather than try to make that one-handed stab, and maybe your club would be better off.
We were talking about Kansas City's pitching problems, some of it due to injuries. One of the big problems that team has had too this season has been defense. Martinez really got fooled And the count 0-2.
We just had a shot of Bobby Cox a moment ago. Let me finish off that story. Bell came up, a hot hitter in the minor leagues. Power from the right-hand side as you look at this pitch again. And at the time, Dave Collins, who's been a very hot hitter, there's Dick Hauser, since the All-Star break, he's been batting .450 and had a hitting streak going, was benched in favor of Bell. Bell promptly responded. This was at Kansas City, oddly, with a double and then a home run. And that's the way Cox has been doing it all year. Now, with the work Collins has been getting, Collins is a happy ball player, as we may discover later in the game when we hear him.
The next pitch is just outside. 2 balls, 2 strikes to count on Martinez. You saw the runners at second and third, Bunnell and Bell, in the bottom of the second inning, 1-0 Blue Jays.
And we've got an interesting situation on the infield with the left side playing back and the right side up going to cut off the run.
Washington playing back. Brett is almost even with a bag at third. And the right side, as you can see, as Earl just mentioned, up.
Reason for that, you figure that Buck Martinez is not going to get as much bat on the ball going to right field as he would if he pulled the ball.
2-2 pitch is hit high in the air, and this one will stay in the infield for Washington to make the catch. So Gura is 2/3 of the way out of the jam as he gets Upshaw and Martinez to pop out, and now he'll face Alfredo Griffin. Update to Chicago leading 1-0 in the first, Yankees 2-0 in the second, leading Minnesota. Texas Milwaukee, that's a twilighter. 3-2 Rangers on top, and those games will get underway on the West Coast later. National League, and the big story is in Philadelphia, where Pat Corrales was fired today. Houston 5, Philadelphia 0 in the fourth, and 1-0 the Mets leading Atlanta in the first inning.
Very seldom a manager gets fired when he's first or tied for first, whatever it is.
Pat Corrales fired. Paul Owens will take over, at least on a temporary basis. Owens coming out of the front office. Griffin fouls it away.
He did that in '72 when they fired Frank Lucchese, remember?
Yep.
But you can't tell me. I have all the respect in the world for Billy Giles, the man who runs the Phils, the president. They must have bumped heads somewhere for Corrales to be fired. They had to.
Absolutely.
Because it's a bad practice to send the man who negotiated the contracts down there with those men. You know that, Earl.
Yes, it is.
You're asking for all kinds of trouble.
You're asking for trouble, but you're also bringing a guy down there that's going to let a veteran team play baseball. He's just going to put the balls and bats on the field and say, win us a lot of ball games. It happened in Montreal.
1-1 pitch to Griffin is hit in the air to left field. Sheridan. It's been a very lively place all season long. Good crowd looking on tonight as the Kansas City Royals are in town. The Blue Jays on top by 2 in the American League East. John Wathan will lead things off for Kansas City as we go to the third inning. Wathan, then the top of the order, Wilson and Washington. Jim Clancy seeking his 9th win of the season. Starts the third inning with a strike.
I think we have to say something about the job that Gura just did after the error by bad throw by Brett and Willie letting the ball get by. It was a tremendous effort.
0-2, working out of a jam. You saw the guard that Wathan wears. John's been prone to fouling pitches off his ankle and foot. In fact, he had broken the ankle earlier in his career. And thus the protective device that is becoming more and more prevalent around both leagues. Prototypical 0-2 pitch. Clancy ahead 1-2 on the number 9 hitter, and just misses inside. 2 balls, 2 strikes to count.
Well, I haven't seen anybody pop out of that dugout yet to see what the count was, but I used to be able to find out who was awake in that dugout. I'd say what the count, and if 6 or 7 ball players got out, there's a line drive out to right center field.
And it's Mosby making the catch.
But if 6 or 7 guys got up and run out there to see what the count was, you know they weren't paying any attention to the ball game.
You ever ask them the score? There are a few guys who haven't known that over the years.
Yeah. including Earl Weaver the night he put Elrod Hendricks and Larry Harlow in as pitchers. Remember that? We were in Fenway Park at the time.
That's right. Thought the ticker was broken. Wilson grounds it down to second for the second straight time, and Garcia throws him out. So a couple of 4-3s in the scorebook next to Wilson's name. Two down, and Washington the batter.
That particular night, they had 19 runs in 4+ innings off of 7 of my 9 pitchers.
So you went to Hendricks and Harlow, and they were great.
Well, they held them to 5 the rest of the way, and I was happy to get home that night.
24-10, you lost that game.
UL Washington is the batter. Washington, a switch hitter, having an off year offensively, and takes outside ball 1.
You've beaten Toronto during your managerial tenure with Baltimore more times here than any other team. Hardly. But you had some of your worst days here, as we just looked at a called strike.
Well,
The 24-10 debacle, and the time in the heat of a pennant race in September when you forfeited a game and blamed umpire Marty Springstead. Remember?
Who else could I blame?
1-1 to Washington is taken low. 2-1 the count.
I said this last week, but it's worth repeating. Marty Springstead is the fellow that said if you ever want to test a Timex watch, strap it to Weaver's tongue.
The 2-1 to Washington. Swing and a miss. 2-2 on UL. That toothpick is part of the standard compliment for him.
That's not a bad line. Weaver just dropped down us, Alfalfa.
He was up rehearsing it all afternoon in the hotel room.
Well, Palmer heard it, and he used it in every banquet speech that he made. He wanted to take credit for it also.
2-2 pitch is chopped foul. I just want to know one thing, Earl. When you win the Emmy next winter, Palmer's going to do the presenting or what?
I hope not.
Your buddy James on the disabled list for the second time this season.
Well, supposedly he's to be back pretty soon. And so is Mike Flanagan, for that matter.
And Tippy Martinez.
The way that team's come alive again with kids like Storm Davis and Boddicker. Oh, that kid's a clever pitcher, Boddicker.
Yes,
Great
he
finesse
is.
pitcher.
6 different kinds of curveballs.
Sounds like Carew at the plate.
Or Mike Cuellar.
3-2 pitch, and Washington is on. So that's the first walk in the game. 2 out. UL Washington is at first base in the 3rd inning. The Blue Jays leading 1-0, and George Brett the batter.
You don't like to walk a guy in front of Brett, and especially the way Brett has utterly creamed Clancy for a 440 average or thereabouts in Clancy's career against Brett.
Brett has an 8-game hitting streak. There goes Washington on the first pitch. The pitch is high, and the throw is not nearly in time, and Clancy did not do a very good job holding Washington on.
There was no chance whatsoever there. He must have had 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 steps before Clancy got rid of the ball. And if they got a stopwatch on him, he must have had 0.2 of a second jump or more.
So no chance. They try to set up a situation where Brett can drive in the tying run with a base hit, and he takes inside here. That's 19 steals for UL this season. Who's hot? Well, Wade Boggs is the hottest, but look at Brett right there under Ricky Henderson, hitting .464 over the past 7 days. And 3-0 now the count. One of the problems with Washington stealing is that with first base open, you're more inclined to work a little bit around Brett, even though the man on deck is not necessarily a bargain in Hal McRae.
He definitely will be hitting here if it's a strike.
It's a strike, but not to his liking. He didn't get the pitch he wanted.
I don't know if I was right or wrong. The pitch was right on the outside corner. George could be one of those guys that likes to look at a 3-0 pitch, and however, he's jumped on a number of 3-0 pitches off of me, so I think he just didn't care for the pitch or the location it was in. 3-1 with McRae on deck. And Brett drills it, and that's a fair ball down into the bullpen, and it is touched by one of the Royals in the bullpen. It was signaled fair. Now, we mentioned there are only 3 umpires, and so that
call was made by the home plate umpire, George Maloney, because the umpires on the bases were out of position. And there is Bill Kunkel, one of the other umpires, and thus it was, I believe that's Mike Armstrong. It is. That's Mike Armstrong, the pitcher, who obviously thought it was a foul ball.
He's embarrassed.
Oh, sure he is.
Sure. I've been going to the park for 35 years, and I've never seen this happen before. I don't think it's covered in the rule book. As far as I know, I don't think there's anything in there about an opposing player interfering with the ball. Originally, Kunkel called fan interference and was going to allow Brett 3 bases. He waved him on to third, but they're going to have to change it.
So Washington was at second. Now Brett hits it fair. As we say, remember, there's no umpire down the first base line because of the 3-man setup. So the call was made by the plate umpire. There's Armstrong.
Remember the name Dickie Mogul?
Sure. Yeah. Rice. Yep.
Explain that.
Was that off the bench?
Off the bench.
Well, this
What was
is
it,
the
the
same
Cotton Bowl?
situation.
Yep.
Another look. Let's see what they're going to ultimately come up with here as far as a ruling is concerned. Dick Hauser, whatever the ruling is not particularly happy with it. Now there's Kunkel, the umpire. Bill, with a runner at second, was towards second base. So they had second base covered. He was going to cover first base in terms of an out or safe call. They had an umpire on the left side, and thus it was up to Maloney. Now let's see what Kunkel's going to do here.
Well, the obvious thing is for the umpires to get together and make sure, if there is a rule, to get the rule right.
Well, if you don't know the rule, there can't be a rule then, because you knew it upside down.
I certainly can't remember it. They're sending George back to second base. Brett's hollering at Armstrong right now. He would not have gotten more than a double. He got his RBI. This whole situation could have been avoided if Clancy would have walked him like he should have done in the first place. What you guys were talking about. Holy crap.
So I would certainly rather pitch to Hal McRae than George Brett when George Brett is hitting .440 career-wise against me and is certainly one of the great hitters.
Well, this is a first. Look at that.
Oh, that's terrific. What a move.
He certainly thought it was a foul ball.
Well, they have ruled it a ground rule double. That's the ruling. Washington scores, so the game is tied. Brett gets his 58th run batted in, and his play resumes. The batter is Hal McRae.
Let me say this. On fan interference, if it's called by Bill Kunkel, the second base umpire, George Maloney, the umpire with the whole field in front of him, is the one to rule at which base he's to be placed. And I think that's what finally happened in this situation.
Well, that's exactly where he would have wound up. In the air, down the right field line, the wind is moving it back in toward the seats and in about 6 or 7 rows.
Did you see Armstrong reaching for it?
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, let's just assume that Brett was a left field hitter and they had the outfield had swung around to left field, and it was going to be possibly a 3-base hit or an inside the park homer. Of course, his own player wouldn't want to interfere and stop that. But I think they're going to have to, at the rule session this winter, come up with a rule to cover everything.
I think you'll be invited to attend that.
There's Toronto next week on ABC's Monday Night Baseball. Yankees against Texas or Baltimore against California. The starting times reflected at the bottom of the screen. So a couple of good matchups a week from tonight on ABC's Monday Night Baseball. I'll be in Arlington. Earl's going to be in Arlington. And, Coach, where are you going to be next week?
The Hamptons.
The Hamptons, huh? All right, we'll see. We'll see. Damaso Garcia in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Lines one into center field for a base hit. A solid single for Garcia. So the Blue Jays have the leadoff man on. Folks, you may wonder where Howard's been the last couple of weeks. He said he wouldn't be joining us. He was going to be in the Hamptons. He was. That picture was taken on Sunday, July the 10th at the Bidawee Pet Fair. Bud Schulberg is the man leaning over, and Howard Cosell were judges. They were registering entrants in the Best Cat Contest at the Bidawee Pet Fair in the Hamptons.
Don't
so for
be
those
bitter.
of you who think that Howard leads the glamorous life, you know where he was a week ago Sunday.
Had a great time.
I can imagine.
Best looking set of cats we ever had in the show.
The Bidawee Pet Fair.
Bud Schilberg, Roger Karras, Charles Adams are judges every year. That's one of the great pet shows.
Lloyd Mosby takes low and outside. So that's why the coach wasn't there last week when we had a 3-run wild pitch in the Dodger-Cardinal game. This game tied 1-1. Bottom of the 3rd inning. Damaso Garcia at first base. And nobody out. Garcia, good speed, but he's been hobbled all year long with a nagging ankle injury. That's drilled to center field. Wilson is on the move, and even Willie's great speed can't come up with that one, and it stays in play as Garcia rounds third. He comes in to score. The throw to third, not in time. A triple.
What did I say? Mosby is the developing ball player?
He's on his way. He definitely is, Howard.
He's not developing anymore.
Well, he showed you 2 tools there. Good power, hit the ball in between the outfielders, and showed good speed. Here's an interesting play. If we catch it, the ball was thrown over the cutoff man. There was a backup play, and he still made it close. I think if they hit the relay man right,
if they hit the backup man, they got him.
If they hit the original cutoff man, they've got a real good shot at him.
That's the 4th triple of the season from Mosby, who has a double and a triple in 2 trips to the plate. And with the infield playing in, the batter is Garth Iorg. 2-1 Toronto. Iorg taking outside.
Larry continues to have trouble, and indeed, Kansas City has developed for Hauser a troublesome habit of falling 4 and 5 runs behind in the early innings of every game.
And that takes away some of their running game, too, Howard.
Absolutely.
It definitely hurts.
They've been the victim of a lot of big innings this season early on. Fouled away, 1-1. Well, there's Armstrong. We've already seen him play tonight in several replays. He's the long man.
By the way, the Earl of Weaver was absolutely right. It was umpire Maloney who had the whole field before him who determined that it would have been a double, and that's why Brett was sent back.
Thanks, Howard. I'm not right that often.
There's a grounder to third. The runner will hold. Brett gets the out at first base. Iorg is gone, and Mosby is still at third. So 1 down now, and up comes Cliff Johnson.
Well, it looks to me like Gurr ought to put that man on third base with no outs. He seems to pitch better with that guy over there. I know he got out of last inning.
Well, he seems to have a magic wand when he goes against Cliff Johnson, who's on a career basis hitting something like 0.059 against him.
And make that 0-5-0 right now because he got him in the first inning, so he's now 1 for 20 lifetime against Gurr, hitting into a double play in the bottom of the first.
Well, I asked Cliff how he hit Gurr before the ball game during batting practice, and he gave no answer. So that kind of, if he'd have hit him, if he'd have had a license on him, he'd have probably told me.
No, Earl, I was there. He gave an answer. We just can't say what he said.
I tell you, he's a nice fella. Big brute of a man, and yet a soft-spoken man with a good vocabulary flow.
And he's made a remarkable transition in the way people have looked at him, too. Remember, he used to be that big, lumbering catcher, slow-footed, when he first came up with Houston, and he looked like he really wasn't hustling. And now, all of a sudden, in the latter stages of his career, he's become a tower of strength on this ball club. And a man that the Blue Jays look up to.
You mentioned what many forget, that he began at Houston. I saw him hit one of the longest balls ever hit in Busch Stadium against the Cardinals when he was with Houston. I was sitting with Big Devine, who was then with the Cardinals. Man, just a monumental blow.
And you don't see too many in that park either.
He's also a fellow that Billy Martin took out to Oakland with him to hit a few home runs. The Oakland Ball Club that year, when they were playing Billy Ball, also led the American League in home runs, and Cliff was part of that.
Still can't get over Pat Corrales being fired.
I think you're right, though. I think something happened. They butted heads, he and Giles,
something
somewhere.
had to happen.
2-1 pitch is low and outside and blocked by Watson for ball 3.
It seemed to me that he and Mr. Owens Pat Corrales and Mr. Owens got along greatly.
I thought so. We saw them together time and again when they didn't have to be. They just enjoyed being together.
So the infield playing in against Johnson as Hauser doesn't want his club to get down by 2.
Is the chant of Toronto. Go Jays, go.
And Cliff Hauser at the plate.
I wouldn't want to say that Cliff Johnson has trouble with a pitcher that can change speeds, because I know 2 pitchers in the American League that he really hit well. One of them was Scotty McGregor.
Yeah, I was about to say, he kills McGregor.
And he also hit the pitcher that used to be at Toronto here, Garvin.
Jerry Garvin?
Yeah, he used to hit him well, and they were both off-speed pitchers.
I can't understand why they're playing in this close on an artificial surface.
I think it's still early enough to give up a run myself, Howard.
On a full count, it's popped foul.
He's aiming for Armstrong.
Yeah. So it remains 3 balls, 2 strikes on Johnson. Runner at third is Lloyd Mosby. Mosby came into tonight's game at 295, so he's pushing the 300 mark. Garcia came in hitting 300. Bunnell came in hitting 309. Upshaw came in hitting 301. So again, to reiterate, it's not just pitching that has the Blue Jays on top. 3-2 pitch is ripped foul into the seats. That one's skipping up through a couple of sets of hands.
Back to Corrales. I can only think of one other case when a manager was in first place and dispossessed. And that's a mere technicality. When Happy Chandler suspended DeRocha for a year, Sukeforth managed for 1 game and won it. And then Bert Shotton replaced him. And the Dodgers, Brooklyn Dodgers, were in first place. 1947. I'm sure somewhere in the record book there's another case.
Well, I can't think of one, Howard.
There's a sort of similar case with Johnny Keane going back to the Cardinals and the Yankees in the early 60s.
Keane resigned, though, I think.
Yes,
yeah,
but, under pressure a little bit. Hit in the air to left field and foul. Foul by plenty.
He hit that a ton.
That's in the merry-go-round out there behind the park.
He hit that a ton. Oh.
That was one of those pitches up that they try to get by Cliff on the inside half.
Time called. You can hear that little ditty being played over the PA system. That broke Johnson's concentration that time.
Well, that's definitely illegal.
You can see Cliff backing out of the box. You're right. There are stipulations against doing something like that at injudicious moments. What do you do? Fire the organist? Ball 4. Johnson draws the walk.
I don't know if you noticed it or not, Cliff Johnson threw that bat gun. It wasn't that he was mad because he walked. I think he was mad at the organist because of the breaking his concentration. It also does something to that poor pitcher on the mound, too.
Especially in a spot like that.
Here it comes. Cliff's right there. Ball's out to strike zone. Now, Cliff isn't mad because he walked, but he was certainly mad at that organist.
Yep. Here is Bunnell, who doubled in the 2nd inning. I don't know if it's an organ or just electronic musical system. 0-1. Either case, somebody pushed the wrong button. Infield double play depth.
That's another thing. The acoustics are such in that dugout that you can't hear that. And your ball player stops and you really don't know what's happening when you're done.
You really like this place, don't you?
A lot of good things happened here, Howard. You remember any of them? I can't right offhand.
These Canadian cities are just remarkable cities. Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, one of the loveliest places in the world. And I have a great feeling for this country and for those cities, probably because of Montreal in '76. Sugar Ray Leonard, Bruce Jenner, Ed Moses, all of our Olympic heroes.
Mosby at third. Johnson at first. 1 ball, 2 strikes, the count on Bunnell. To right field, and it's Otis running the circle route to make the catch. He'll have no play as Mosby scores easily. And the Blue Jays lead it by a score of 3-1. So Bunnell, who came within inches of hitting a home run in the second inning with a double off the wall and left, does the job here in the third, drives in his 36th run of the season. And the Blue Jays lead 3-1 with 2 out now in the bottom of the third inning. And George Bell, the batter. We checked it. There is no organist, so the guy that Johnson is mad at is the fellow who pushes the buttons as far as the recorded system is concerned.
It's like using the scoreboard as a means for whetting up the crowd.
Bell was safe on Brett's error in the second inning. There's Barry Bunnell. Started his career with Atlanta, came here in the deal that sent Chambliss to the Braves, and he has found a home here. Outside the Bell.
Sure has. You wonder how he hits the ball that far. Never dreamed that he'd develop the ability to have at least warning track power with consistency. Earl, did you?
Well, he came up in the other league, Howard. Once he got here, yes, he's got that type of swing that you can hit the ball pretty hard. He had a good year average-wise in Atlanta. I don't know how many home runs he hit that particular year, but when he got over here, his swing more or less, when ball players mature, they learn how to pull a little bit, and then they look a lot stronger than they do when they first get up there and they're feeling their way.
Up high, that wasn't as close as it looked. There's Bobby Cox. The year you're talking about was his rookie year, 1977, when Bunnell hit 300, hit 1 home run.
Well, Howard, you were right.
Bunnell's career high in homers, 13 with the Blue Jays in 1980. He has 6 this season. 2-0 pitch to Bell is ripped and caught by Washington at shortstop. Timed his leap perfectly, and the inning is over. We go to the 4th inning, and Willie Aikens leads off for Kansas City. The count 1 ball and no strikes.
Those fighters will make the weights, I trust.
I don't know, especially after last Friday's debacle in Washington, D.C. 2-0 the count.
Gurr's been hit mighty hard, but Kansas City's right in this ball game. And when you look at the end of the lineup and the people that are coming up, you know that they can score some runs.
Aikens fouling it away, and the count 2 balls and 1 strike. 3-1, Toronto on top. Jays 2 games up as we begin play today in the East. Royals 2.5 back of Texas at the start of the day in the West. 3 balls and 1 strike.
That mile should be a great race. Preview of the Olympics in LA in '84, 1,500-meter event.
Full count.
In the meantime, Earl, we're presenting this Toronto team to nearly all of the United States tonight for the first time in prime time.
That's grounded down to short. Picked up by Alfredo Griffin. Over to Upshaw for the out. 1 gone.
And one of the questions I kept getting from the media people up here today was, what if there's a Toronto-Montreal World Series? Well, along the way, I don't know when, there will be a Toronto-Montreal World Series. And I suppose there are people in the United States for whom interest would be diminished if there were a World Series involving the 2 great Canadian cities.
Otis grounds 1 to the hole. Watch Griffin here throwing off balance and gets a no. Initial The call was out by Kunkel, but then Upshaw could not keep his foot on the bag. It looked like he was going to be able to stay on it. Kunkel so designated in his initial call, but then on another look, he saw Willie's foot off the bag. What a play by Griffin.
You imagine how he got that much on the throw? Believe that, Earl?
I don't see how he got that much on the throw, Howard, but I honestly think that he had time.
It was out.
He was. The crowd is booing. Normally, they don't replay controversial calls on the scoreboard, but they just did here. So the fans got to see that again, and that's the reason for the booing.
Well, getting back to that play at shortstop, I think Otis has good speed, and he runs hard all the time to first base. But I think if Alfredo would have planted his feet, fly ball to center field.
Off the bat of White, and it's Mosby underneath it, and he's got it 2 down. We're going to take another look here, Earl, at that play again.
All right, as he goes after this ball, you'll see him come up with it. He's taking 1, 2, 3 steps before he got rid of it. If you can plant that right foot, you'll have to hesitate a little bit, but you'll definitely get more on the ball. Now, as far as I'm concerned, he's on that base, and that's why the fans boo.
Yep.
Sheridan grounds it. Great stop by Upshaw, and the inning is over. Base. He didn't have to stray very far for this one, but a great play to take an extra base hit away from Sheridan.
Notice he stepped on the base a second time, Al. He didn't want any quarrels about it.
Wanted Kunkel to know it for sure. Fouled away, and the count is 0-1. You were making the point before, Coach, about Canadian baseball.
That's right. There will be somewhere along the way a Toronto-Montreal World Series. Baseball is an international game. It becomes a demonstration sport in the LA Olympics in '84. May become one of the regular sports in '88 in Seoul, Korea. And so that's bad.
The fans are booing. That was completely unintentional. Larry Gurr don't want to start another inning off with a man on first base, and you could see his reaction when Willie Upshaw never got out of the way of the ball.
I suppose
if we can see Gurr now, he's going to show a little disgust right there.
Yep.
He did not like
he did.
that.
So Larry Gurr continues to struggle along here in the 4th inning. He leads things off by hitting Upshaw. Bobby Cox walking back.
Will your team fall prey to pressure, panic?
No, I think pressure is built upon broadcasters and newspaper people. And if you go out and just play the ball game like we do, we take them one at a time. And you hear managers talk about that all the time. But basically, that's our team philosophy. And our goal in spring training was to improve upon 78 wins last year and get 12 more, which would put us at 90, which would put us in some kind of contention. And I think we're ahead of that pace right now. But yet that's still our goal, and right now we are in first place, and we're going to give it our best shot and try to win this thing. And it's certainly not going to, if we blow it or lose it and don't win it, whatever, it won't be because of pressure or that we didn't try our best.
Bobby Cox talking to Howard before the game. Meanwhile, as you can see, Upshaw gets up. He was hit right on the letters where the name Upshaw is on the back of his uniform. Unfortunately, not a few inches higher. Again, another look. Gurr was involved in an incident in Anaheim.
You're right.
A couple of weeks ago,
right on the letters
with Tim Foley.
You know, Al, I suppose you and I will always look at a scene like that with an instant fright and even horror. Going back, we were together when Gossage had the misfortune to hit Ronce, and it was in the helmet, and that's when automatically our reaction was, and Jim Palmer was in the booth with us. Thank God for the batting helmet.
There's no doubt about that.
If Zip Zimmer did nothing else in his lifetime, I'll tell you, when Jim Kirk struck him down in Columbus back in 1947, and then a pitcher named Jeff Coat would hit him later, that led to the development of the batting helmet. That was some contribution.
One of the greatest inventions in baseball.
And Mr. Branch Rickey in the forefront of that.
Buck Martinez, the batter, fouls it away, and the count is 0-1. Anyway, Coach, the point you were making about international baseball.
That's correct. Japan will be in it. Cuba will be in it. Venezuela will be in it. So many of the countries around the world. And I happen to believe that the American public the way it loves the Olympiads, will certainly react favorably to an all-Canadian City World Series, if and when it comes. Two-dimensional as a people to view it otherwise.
Oh, one pitch is drilled to left field. He got all of that one, and only the wind can keep it in, and it won't. He's gone.
Durer is certainly not changing speeds the way I watched him do the past 5-6 years in the American League. I don't know if he's attempting to change speeds, but the ball's getting up there almost at the same speed every pitch. And he certainly is disgusted with himself. This was a pitch right down the center of the plate, a little bit below the belt, right in the wheelhouse. Here comes the pitch right here. I don't know what Larry's trying to do, but it was right there, so Buck Martinez could hit it a long, long way.
I tell you, I was chuckling because Buck, he's got to be playing over his head, completely out of character with his long-term career. He's hitting home runs now with reasonable frequency.
Yep. He platoons with Ernie Witt. That's 8 homers, and remember, he only plays half the time. Having a career year. You think back, Martinez has been around so long, he was one of the original Kansas City Royals.
Exactly.
Alfredo Griffin takes outside. He was not picked in the expansion draft when Kansas City came into the league in '69, but he was acquired in a trade prior to Kansas City ever playing a game.
Well, I remember him hitting one out of the Kansas City Park against us. It wasn't monumental, and it didn't mean the pennant or anything, but I learned to respect Buck. We used to play him shallow, and after that home run, I moved the outfielders back a little bit.
See, Griffin taking one off his foot. Now, Griffin, if he comes out of the lineup, that would be a story. He's played in 272 straight games, and only Dwight Evans, as we mentioned before, of the Red Sox, as you can see, taking one off his foot. Only Evans with 360 has a longer consecutive game streak in this league. Garvey, of course, up near 1,200 now in the National.
This is a player they could ill afford to lose.
They have a great young shortstop by the name of Tony Fernandez in the minors.
May be the most ready man for the big leagues in all of the minors, but Griffin has been so great, and no way they're going to tamper with Alfredo.
Not right now, anyway.
No, and I'll tell you, for a young fellow to come up and get thrown in a pennant race isn't the best thing in the world either.
2-2 now, the count on Griffin.
Getting back to the pressure that Bobby Cox spoke about, he's handling this situation as well as it can be handled. You come out to the ballpark, and if you just win the game you're playing that night, you know you're going to stay in the race. And I think that's going to be his theme the rest of the season.
Fouled away. Toronto leading 5-1. Bottom of the 4th inning. Nobody on and nobody out.
Thing about Cox, though, Earl, look at that. 14 home runs in his last 62 innings.
That's not good.
It's a great understatement.
Averages out to about 2 per 9 innings. And tonight he's given up 1 homer, 1 triple, and a couple of doubles. Six hits in all.
The thing about Bobby Cox, though, that I like is he will freely admit that he himself has changed. He was a tentative major league manager at Atlanta by his own admission. Now he is utterly confident.
Popped up. Back of third. Brett and Washington are there, and it's Brett making the catch in foul territory.
That's so true, Howard. Taking over the Baltimore Baseball Club in 1968 with people like Boog Powell, Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, you're almost hesitant to institute some of the things that you want done. However, if you're 37 years old and brash, you say we're going to do it, and that's it. And I think that's what Bobby Cox has done since he's got to Toronto.
Here is Damaso Garcia fouling it away, and the count 0-1.
What a ball player this kid is. Tonight, you've never seen better evidence of Toronto's strength down the middle. Griffin, Garcia, Martinez. Look at the way Garcia has hit Gura. And, of course, young Mosby in center field.
And Willie Upshaw at first.
Right. And defensively, again, we talked about Toronto's pitching. Everybody knows about that. The hitting, people finding out about that. And they're doing the job defensively. That's lined into left field for a base hit. So Garcia, who had a 21-game hitting streak, snapped yesterday. And it took a great play by Julio Cruz to rob one either.
No, he doesn't. Dennis Leonard's injury still haunting the ball club. We've discussed that. Started Gaylord Perry when he brought him back to the big leagues against Cleveland. The score of that game was Cleveland 17, Kansas City 3. Indians got 20 hits.
One bright spot of late, though, has been Paul Splittorff. We saw him on a Monday night game on the 4th of July, and then he pitched well the other night.
He's a clever pitcher. He always has been. Once he was a Yankee nemesis. Hasn't been that for a long time.
He certainly wasn't himself. He wasn't the pitcher that I've watched pitch in the American League the last 3-4 years.
They pitch out to Mosby, but nothing is happening with Garcia, the runner at first, and one out here in the 4th inning. Mike Armstrong, as you can see, the Royals pitchers having a lot of problems. And, of course, that's been compounded by a leaky defense and some untimely hitting. But if you're an optimist and a Kansas City fan, you got to look at the fact that through all of this bad spell, and they have not won back-to-back games in about a month. Through all of it, they're only 2.5 games out of first, and they're even in the loss column with Texas.
Garcia looks like he's going to take off. Bobby Cox is not going to stop right here. He's not going to stop trying to get runs.
1 ball, no strikes to count. And there he goes. He had a big lead and a decent jump, and a good throw doesn't get him. So you can throw it on the money, as did Wathan, but if you get that jump, and Garcia had a good-sized lead that time, you're going to steal the base.
Had no chance. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another 5 or 6 steps before the pitcher even released the ball.
Throw right there, but Garcia steals second, and that's stolen base number 20 for him. We mentioned that ankle problem he's had all year. That's part of the reason he's been caught 14 times, so that's not a very good success rate.
Right here you'll see UL Washington taking the throw in front of the bag. Possibly, if he'd have straddled the bag there and let the ball come to him, he'd have had a shot. I don't know if he was late getting there or not.
3 balls, no strikes to count on Mosby. And Lloyd is on, so a perfect night continues for him with a double, a triple, and now a walk. The Blue Jays threatening to break it wide open, lead 5-1, have runners at first and second with 1 out. And Rance Mullenix will pinch hit for Orge. Now here's the platoon system that we talked about earlier with Bobby Cox. They started Orge against the lefty, and once they go to the righty, they bring in Rance Mullenix, a former Royal. Blue Jays with good success pinch hitting this season, .333.
Also played for the California Angels, and the Toronto Ball Club is hot. They had one of their best road trips ever. They come home 5-2 off of that trip to a real nice crowd here in Toronto. And they're showing the people here why they're in first place.
And the swing team, the American League, and they will wind up the season playing the Seattles and Minnesotas of the world, which, based upon the record, is hardly conducive to panic and folding.
Well, that's an ideal situation if you're ahead, but if you've got ground to make up, if you're chasing somebody, you'd just as soon go head-to-head, I think, Howard. But if you got that lead and you're in first place and the other clubs are knocking each other off, it's an ideal situation, so it works both ways.
Mullenix, a late swing and a miss, and the count, no balls and 2 strikes.
That pinch hitting statistic we just looked at was what Bobby emphasized in the pregame show, you'll recollect, Alfalfa.
Cox has done a masterful job. There's no question about that. A ball club that started very much to come into its own about mid-season last year. Mullenix hits it to deep right field. Moving over is Otis. The runner at second is tagging, and that's Garcia advancing to third. So Mullenix hits a fly ball deep enough to get Garcia over 90 feet as Mosby holds at first, and Cliff Johnson will come up.
And Amos Otis got a good jump on that ball. Now, I was in the dugout when the switch was made for Willie Wilson to center and Otis in left. And when he was in left field, he didn't seem to get the jump off of the ball that he got in center field. And that was one reason for moving him back. Not that Willie Wilson couldn't play it, But Otis didn't become adept at playing left field. Now he's accepted right field. I'm sure he's worked at it a little bit more.
5-1 Toronto. Cliff Johnson has hit into a double play and drawn a walk. Armstrong missing low, ball 1. The Blue Jays last year finishing 6 games under 500, tied with Cleveland for last place. Remember, though, last year the Yankees had a terrible year too. The Yankees were only 1 game ahead of Toronto at the end.
I saw that statistic today, and that was amazing. That just goes to show you what good baseball Toronto and even Cleveland played.
So while Toronto is shocking a lot of people who don't follow the game that closely, there were many others who could see that this ball club was just about on the brink last year of not necessarily being in first place, but really starting to make its move to be shaped into the type of team that would contend for a while. And people like Johnson added in the offseason, helping to put all the pieces together. And right now things are beautiful up here.
There's some good teams in the American League East.
Yeah,
Milwaukee, the defending champions. New York has so much talent. Baltimore, a good ball club. So Toronto's work is cut out for him.
That's Garcia at third. Mosby at first. And the 2-0 pitch to Johnson is drilled into the gap for a base hit and more. Garcia comes in to score. Mosby can fly, so he will score. And Johnson has a double at 7-1.
I asked Cliff Johnson if he was hitting against right-handers a lot, how he was swinging the bat. He said to him it didn't make any difference who was on that mound. Now here's a right-handed side armor. Cliff got all of it, hit it hard out in the gap for a nice stand-up double.
And that's 51 runs batted in at the halfway mark in the season. 7-1 Toronto. But it's one in the left field.
Crazy.
They are chanting and cheering and carrying on.
What a demonstration, Earl. It couldn't happen at a better time, in a better way.
As I said,
they have pennant fever. Just as Al said earlier on, they're going crazy.
Well, they are rocking.
Holding their hands aloft, we're number 1. All of them. As one. It's a tremendous scene.
it is.
So Toronto on top 8-1 as Johnson comes in to score. And to the bench again goes Bobby Cox for Dave Collins to hit for George Bell.
You want to win each game, each day. Bobby Cox is showing the nation in prime time how he does it with this group of players. There's no let-up, looking for every edge. The way he's looked for every edge game by game thus far this year.
He also said something interesting. Switching players like this keeps the rust off of them, doesn't keep them on the bench. It gives them playing time, so when you need them, they're ready.
Dave Collins, the 9th man to bat in the inning. The Blue Jays leading 8-1. Fouled at the plate.
But a season-long average that you just looked at is not representative, as we talked about earlier, of his play since the All-Star break.
He's really come on. He was down in the
He's given
low 2s.
every evidence of performing the way he did as a Cincinnati Red Leg.
Collins takes a change up and in. You mentioned showing the nation in prime time. This is a very important game to the Blue Jay fans, to the whole organization, really, because they're in first. Yet a lot of people don't get to see them very much, and you're right. If they would have come out tonight and got blown out,
Peter Hardy, the principal owner of the Blue Jays,
people would have said, well, maybe it's a fluke or whatever. It's the type of thing, granted, one game does not a season make, but if you wind up on a primetime telecast and you get beat 12-1 and you're in first place, and everybody remembers that one game and says, wait a second, they're not that good.
I remember once when we were making a stretch run, we were closing in a little.
who hit for Orge and flied out, stays in the game at third base, and that's Dave Collins, who batted for Bell, remaining in the game and batting in the number 6 spot. And Barry Bonnell moves over to right field. He started the game in left field. Collins now playing left. So Jim Clancy, his club giving him a big cushion, leading 8-1 with John Wathan to lead things off for Kansas City. Wathan, Wilson, and Washington in the 5th.
Tell you, these fans are alive. Toronto loves Bobby Ball, a prominent sign in the place.
Well, I never thought I never thought that I'd see the fans in Toronto react the way they do in Baltimore, or the way they do in Fenway Park or in Yankee Stadium, but here it is. That's all it takes.
A winner. And remember, these people have had no transition. All they've had is a last-place ball club. It wasn't like they had a year and a half to get ready for this. It just came all at once.
Let me remind you, Alfalfa, the city of Toronto has a great baseball history from 1886 through 1967 in the International League. And some of the people who played here in Toronto are some of the most memorable people in the history of the game, or who managed. People like Ralph Kiner, Dick Williams, Charlie Gehringer, Burley Grimes says we have an easy out. Grounded to Griffin. Dixie Walker, Ellie Howard, Dale Alexander. What a hitter he was. You remember that big horse? He was of the... Look at some scores here. Cleveland suffering again. The Yankees in a struggle. Milwaukee won that first game. Oh, are they playing baseball? Houston smothering Philadelphia. Mets beating Atlanta.
Here is Wilson, who is 0 for 2 tonight, grounding out twice to second.
With Texas losing, Kansas City won't lose any ground. They'll still be tied in the loss column.
Texas playing a doubleheader, first game of 2.
I understand, but they've already lost 1, so they're even in the loss column.
And they could be either 2 or 3 back. Well, of course, the White Sox could be. Harry knows he's on television here, right? You assume.
He is something. Got a son here with him. Son's even bigger than he is, even taller.
Wilson grounds it to the left of Griffin. Nice one-hand pickup, throw on the run, and get him.
How'd you like that release of the baseball, Earl?
That was an outstanding play, Howard. You can't say anything but. This man has outstanding range. The ball was hit a good 5 or 6 steps. It's hit hard. 5 or 6 steps to his left. You could count him. He came up. A circus throw. Trying to imitate Ozzie Smith, didn't he? Well, Alfredo always had the reputation of being a possible outstanding shortstop. However, he was always careless. This year he settled down.
Here's Washington fouling it away.
There's a difference in making an error when your team is last, losing 9-1, or when you're in the thick of a pennant race, throwing a ball away and letting the winning run, tying run, or winning run score on you. And I think that's something like this helps ball players mature. And if they don't make it this year, they might go into next year as favorites in the American League East.
1-1. Little doubt about that. It's always the club that normally makes the most improvement that gets a lot of the preseason acclaim the following year. And it's going to be tough to top the Blue Jays for improvement going into next season. 1-2 the count.
I was stringing off names of people who played here. Nap LaJoie, Willie Keeler, Carl Hubble pitched here. You think they don't have a baseball history in Toronto? They haven't had baseball greatness here? Heine Manouche. I don't know if you ever saw Heine.
I never saw him. I recognize the name, Howard. You're going way, way back now.
Well, he and Goose Goslin, 2 of the best hitters I ever saw.
Sparky Anderson had his best years here. he only had 1 year in the majors as a player.
Well, it wasn't here, but it was in this league. I won a pennant at Rochester.
Ralph Kiner. Reggie Smith, who's now having a big year in Japan.
Soft by Weaver. With Willie Upshaw to lead things off. Upshaw fouled out in the second. Then he was hit high on the back in the fourth, and he drills this one to right and right at Otis, who makes the catch. Willie's been up there, has done his thing so quickly tonight, we've had no time to talk about him. Cousin of Gene Upshaw, the longtime Raider guard, now head of the NFL Players Association. And Willie is a fella who is just now starting to get his due. You talk to some people who've watched this team all year, they think that Upshaw should be the league's MVP right now.
Well, he's a little bit away from that, I'd have to say, but he's a ball player that's coming into his own. He's starting to develop. Howard likes Mosby. I like Mosby. I think I like Willie as good as any young player I think that's around.
Who?
Upshaw.
Willie Upshaw. Oh. Here's Martinez, who has popped out and homered.
We've got a player at Baltimore.
Yeah.
Named Cal Ripken Jr. That's a great young player.
He's going to be great. You know, when you speak about Upshaw and the year he's having a great year, but Cecil Cooper and Eddie Murray certainly are doing what they have to do to be called stars.
A lot of people know about those fellas. They're just finding out. Came into the game as a pinch hitter, went to left field for an inning. Now goes to first base as Upshaw comes out. There is Barry Bonnell. He started the game in left, went to right for an inning, and now he's back in left field because the new right fielder is right there. That's Jesse Barfield. So Bobby Cox not only platoons, but he uses the whole roster, and tonight evidence of such.
That's exactly what Bobby Cox said in the pregame show. Everybody gets a chance to play, and he's proven it.
And it's not just a chance to play, Howard. He's accomplishing something.
Exactly. He's applying a constant pressure against the opponent, getting the most out of every person in the right time, the right way.
Exactly right.
Here is George Brett, who's lined to right and double to right. Hit the ball hard twice tonight and takes outside, ball one. Of course, it was his double in the third inning that provided the most humorous moment of the night. Ball hit fair just inside third, and Mike Armstrong, now pitching for Kansas City, picked it up in the bullpen.
I might add, Earl, that was the system of the Earl of Weaver, with Dwyer, who's now beginning to hit, by the way, Lowenstein,
Ayala,
Renicky, Ayala.
High in the air to deep right field. Barfield goes back, and he'll watch this one go into the night. So Brett, who has killed Blue Jay pitching over the years, and he's been very rough on Clancy. The only time they got him out tonight, he drilled one to the right fielder in the first inning. For Brett, and again will reinforce the point that he missed 25 games already this season. That's 18 home runs for him in 60 games.
And I want to say one thing. If he'd have hit that ball to Armstrong, Armstrong would have never jumped up and tried to catch it. I'll tell you that. He got every bit of it.
He's just a marvelous batsman. One of the greats. Not just of our time, of all time. He's that good.
He is
really is.
Al McRae is the batter. McRae has singled and lined out. What's amazing about Brett is he came into the game, there he is, he came into the game at 364, he's 2 for 3, so he's up around 366 or 7 right now. But not only that, he's got 18 home runs in the 60 games in which he's played.
6 total bases and 2 RBIs tonight.
Well, you're talking about a pace in which if you played a whole season, you'd have about 45 homers.
You're talking about a guy, as we look at him, who's 7 for 9 against Clancy this year with 3 home runs, and they didn't walk him that other time.
There's a strike taken by McRae on a delayed call.
When he got the Armstrong double.
Well, the Toronto pitchers are going out there with a little confidence in the people behind them now that they're going to get some runs, and it helps. Keeps you from being too fine, I think, if you know you're going to get 4, 5, 6 runs out there. Of course, we'll never be able to say that not walking Brett or being a little more careful with him was not right in that situation.
Well, I had a long talk with George this morning. We taped him.
Grounded down to third, and Molinex on the run, throws, and scooped out by Collins. So the parts are all changeable, but the result is the same.
However, he wasn't on the base when he caught that ball, or at least I don't think he was.
Take a look.
We'll get a second look at it. Not an easy play. Came up with it, throw a little bit wide.
Yeah.
And I think he was off.
I agree with you.
Finishing up on Brett Alfalfa, I don't know if our producer, Dennis Lewin, will have the time or the opportunity to play the Brett material, but he made a couple of essential points. One, he's tired of losing to this Toronto team, and yes, they are for real.
You just coaxed Dennis into doing it. All the way. 1-1.
And he's a very self-assured man, as I think you know very well, and we will hear from him at the end of this half inning.
Willie Aikens takes the 1-1 pitch for a strike. Aikens is having a decent year when you look at the numbers in terms of batting average. Came in tonight at 326, but the hits have not been particularly productive with just 30 runs batted in. It's been Kansas City's problem. Their team batting average, fine, 271. Near the top in the American League, but in run production, they are way down the list.
The Yankees have that problem, too.
And it's inside. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Well, that takes us back to my favorite weapon, the 3-run homer. And the Toronto Ball Club is tied for the lead with Baltimore at 94 home runs.
Three balls and 2 strikes to count on Willie Aikens. Clancy's pitch is another foul at the plate. Talking about Kansas City's problems in run production. They are 13th, next to last. That's for Earl right there, that graphic. Just for you.
How do you like Aikens' batting stance?
I like Aikens. I like everything about his swing.
Look at that stance. Look at that right foot.
To the left side, look at this. Griffin, this is a clinic.
I'm going to stand up and applaud for that one myself. Everybody here in the stadium standing up and applauding, and rightly so. That was an outstanding play.
3 of them tonight for Griffin. He didn't get the call on one when Upshaw couldn't keep his foot on the bag. And the crowd rising as one and giving Griffin a standing ovation.
All right. That's what it's all about. That's what baseball is all about right there.
What a remarkable play.
That's got to put him in the Mark Belanger, Ozzie Smith category for me. Louis Aparicio.
Alfredo Griffin.
And still another angle. Watch this play.
What a pleasure to watch again.
And the crowd will respond in another moment because they're also replaying this right now on the scoreboard.
What a night for the people of Toronto. Just one game of 162, but a chance for their team to be seen by the whole of the neighboring nation. A chance to show what they're really all about. Nice scene.
Well, our audience got to see a little baseball tonight so far, even in a one-sided game.
Finding out in a hurry about people like Griffin, Garcia, Clancy, Martinez, Mosby. 0-2 the count.
Clancy,
yep, mentioned him. And of course, you're not seeing people like Dave Steve, who a lot of folks feel is the best pitcher in baseball right now.
the All-Star game.
Yep.
A little bit. I never thought I'd make it to the major leagues when I signed in 1971 out of high school. But things have gone well for a good note, and I'm in no need to panic over the Kansas City Royals because I think we're going to start playing the type of baseball we're capable of. And when we do, we could run away with the Western Division because no one seems to want that division right now. If we can get hot right now, we got a chance to win a lot of ball games.
Well, they're not hot tonight, but he is. Here's Brett's home run again. A drive to deep right field to go with an earlier double. He has driven in both Kansas City runs tonight. He's 2 for 3. His hitting streak is 9 games, but his club is trailing 8-2 as we go to the bottom of the 6th inning.
And it's not that the Kansas City club has really looked that bad. It's just that the Toronto club has really looked that good to me. They've just played outstanding baseball tonight.
Well, it's very much been for the Blue Jays tonight their season in microcosm and why they are where they are. You're looking at the pitching. Clancy tonight doing an estimable job. You've got the defense. That speaks for itself. Griffin alone. And plenty of punch through the order offensively. Popped up foul by Garcia. Back out of play. 0-1.
This fella could put on quite a show defensively for you also. Damaso Garcia, good range at second base with a real good arm. And doing the job offensively also.
Got fooled, half swing grounder to short. UL Washington's throw is scooped out backhanded by Eakins at first. UL got a little lazy on the throw, but he was bailed out by Willie. One away in the 6th inning. And Lloyd Mosby is the batter. He's got a perfect night. Double, triple, walk, drove in a run, and he scored 3 times.
It's your boy. Good night, Howard.
I think he's a terrific young ball player.
Mike Armstrong working in relief for Kansas City.
Early in the telecast, Earl, you likened this Toronto team to that Oakland team when it was a developmental process. There's Vida Blue, who has to be in terrible personal turmoil, having a simply dreadful year, and maybe facing the nagging thought that once a great pitcher, it may not be possible for him ever to be great again or anything like it. And part of the Oakland team that Earl was talking about.
He was one of them, and Blue Moon Odom, Catfish Hunter,
But
just like Clancy, just like Leal. We said that at the start of the show.
But there is another team.
That's a strike, 3-1.
That they are likening this Blue Jay team to. You know what team that is, Alfalfa. The Miracle Mets.
The
69.
That's right. They came from, people think, I mentioned at the outset tonight, I'm sure some people thought, well, wait a second, didn't the Mets or didn't the Red Sox come from last place and finish first? That's not true. The Mets were 9th in a 10-team league in '68 and then won the pennant after winning the divisional title in '69. And the Red Sox were also 9th in a 10-team league in '66 prior to what they call the impossible dream in '67. But no team has ever gone from last to first. There's Paul Splittorff pitching well lately.
But I was handed by somebody here today an almost eerily prophetic column written back in March of this year. It was a conversation with Ron Taylor. Now, you remember Ron Taylor, Earl, because one of your greatest teams ever was sabotaged by the Miracle Mets in '69, and it's hard for you still to believe it. Ron Taylor was a pitcher for that team who had 9 victories in relief and 14 saves. And as he talked in March about how the Blue Jays were going to do this year.
There's a fly ball, shallow left center field, and Washington goes all the way out to make the play 2 down.
It was eerie, Alfalfa, to read what he said then. He likened Steve to Seaver. Many others have.
Third baseman.
He likened Clancy to Kuzman. Some others have. He likened he likens Leal to Nolan Ryan. And he took it position. Cliff Johnson is in effect the Don Clendenin that great veteran was for the Mets when he won the Babe Ruth Award. That's right, against you.
They had Gentry then too.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Rance Mullenix, the batter.
They probably had better relievers. Hey, look at George Order on deck to bat for Cliff. This is the way Cox does it. He's bearing out everything he's told us before the game.
1-0 pitch is up and away. You know, you mentioned Ron Taylor. Do you know what Ron Taylor is doing now?
He's some kind of dentist.
He is the team physician of the Blue Jays.
He still pitches batting practice.
Yep. Team physician of the Blue Jays. former Major League pitcher, born here in Canada.
I don't want to belittle the team that beat us in the World Series in 1969, but this Toronto team is a little bit younger, I think, and I don't know if that's exactly true, but I think this
they had a mix. They had just what Cox is creating now.
But I think this team is going to continue to improve for the next 3, 4, 5 years, where the Mets didn't.
Well, there's validity there. They
popped up in foul ground. And back out of play.
They had Cleon Jones, who had a big year, hit about 340. They had Agee. They had Swoboda. Of course, the Mets did come back under Yogi Berra and gave Oakland a tough tussle of it in the World Series of what, 73?
Yes.
When Jackson creamed Seaver for that big home run.
That was the year the Mets won the pennant after they had finished, I believe, 4 games over 500. It's 8-2 Blue Jays with White, Sheridan, and Watson, the bottom of the order, coming up against Clancy. Frank White has flied to center twice. White earlier this year drove in a run in 11 consecutive games. And that set a Kansas City club record.
Well, we're in an 8-2 ball game, and it's really not because Kansas City has played that badly. I mentioned that before. We've talked an awful lot about the Toronto Ball Club, but this Kansas City Ball Club's going to be back, and they're going to be in the race the second half. There's no doubt about that.
Grounded by the mound. Here goes Griffin again, and he does it again.
This fellow would have been on national television, it seems like, earlier in the year. He'd have been on the American League also.
Well, yep. It's one thing to do it on a Tuesday night in April before a crowd of 4,700, and it's another to do it in prime time. What a show he's putting on.
The human vacuum cleaner.
Sheridan is the batter. He goes after the first pitch. It's a fly ball to left field. Barry Bonnell makes the catch. Quickly 2 down. Another angle now, Griffin.
We get to see this play one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps, and an off-balance throw, and it had something on it.
Frank White is not chopped liver. He's no slow foot.
2 down. John Watson is the batter. 0 for 2. Mentioned in Kansas City earlier, they are right now a team in a transition period.
This was a first. Little aerobics here, whatever you call it. I don't know what you call it.
These people are just marvelous. What a great joy to come to this city, to this ballpark, see this kind of enthusiasm. They're terrific.
George Orta bats for Cliff Johnson. You saw him in the on-deck circle awaiting a possible turn. Had the 6th inning been prolonged. And now he's officially in the game. Takes over as the DH.
And a very logical move again. Get him an at-bat tonight, because tomorrow night he might have to come off of that bench for you and win you a ball game in the 7th or 8th inning.
The 1-0 pitch to Orta, a swing and a miss. It's an important point. We've been talking about what Cox has been doing, how he's been utilizing his people. The other thing that he'll accomplish is that as you get down into August now, and the real hot weather in August and early September, his players are going to be that much fresher. And again, the important point that Howard brought up earlier, when you look at that schedule in September, they play nothing but Western Division clubs from Labor Day on. So while the rest of the East is going head-to-head with each other, battling it out night after night, the Jays are playing the other division.
And the point you brought out about fatigue is very, very important. There's very few players in the game today that can go 162 and still maintain the stamina that you need going down the wire.
Why is that?
I really can't explain
What was different?
I don't know, but there are people that can do it. I mean, Cal Ripken and Eddie Murray have done it for me. Pete Rose, definitely.
No question about that. Steve Garvey.
There's a look at attendance now. This year, they're up almost 250,000. That's the largest increase in the big leagues.
They've done an amazing job in this city. For those of you who did see the pregame show, the former president of the ball club, Peter Bavasi, son of the legendary Buzzy Bavasi of the Angels, did the most enterprising merchandising job, I think, ever done in the history of this sport. Blue Jay was in every icebox, as Peter put it.
That's what he said.
I took him to my class at Yale to lecture as a guest lecturer, and he told the class exactly how he had marketed this remarkable team and remarkable city.
Florida fouls it back.
Spotlessly clean city.
Well, I have to be, when you're in this business, Howard, as you well know, we get all around the world. This is the first time I have ever been in Toronto.
Are you kidding?
No, first time ever, and I agree totally. Beautiful city, and we're not just saying it because we're here and we want people to say, they passed out all the accolades. Very honestly, it's a gorgeous downtown, beautiful setting on the lakefront, and of course the enthusiasm exhibited by the fans tonight, it's made for a very memorable visit.
And we've got beautiful weather. Sometimes early May, it's not so nice here at the ballpark.
Grounded to the left side, and Washington throws out order, one gone.
First game ever here was played in snow flurries.
Yep, against the White Sox in '77. 32 degrees the temperature that day.
That's what we showed in the pregame show.
However, if Toronto should get in the World Series and they go into mid-October, I don't think the weather here at that time of year is much different from New York.
Well, I can tell you right now that there is a committee that was appointed involving the two league presidents and Mr. Bob Howsam, who has reassumed the chief operating role with the Cincinnati Reds, was appointed a long time ago in anticipation of Canadian cities being in the World Series by the commissioner, Huey Kuhn, and they'll shortly be forthcoming a report on what to do in the event of inclement weather if the Canadian teams are involved in the World Series.
But what can you do about the weather?
You can move to a different site.
Oh, I see.
I'd like to see that tried. Brett picks it up and throws him out. Two down. Dave Collins coming over from the Yankees. His club right in the thick of things in the American League East. Howard talked to them earlier.
Now, what everybody wants to know is, can the Blue Jays sustain? Are they for real? Your view.
We're for real. We got a good ball club. We got excellent pitching. Anytime you run starting pitchers out there like we do, you know we're going to be in the ball game every day. We got a hungry ball club. We play excellent defense. We're pesky. We got speed. We're right up there in top of the league in home runs, and the Toronto Blue Jays aren't going to surrender this thing.
Is there anything that he said that hasn't happened tonight?
No.
That's right. Very prophetic.
Nope. That's the happiest I've seen him since I got him flown to New York with 6 other Yankees to appear in the Night of 100 Stars doing New York, New York with Liza Minnelli. He was the only one of the 7 who could dance.
One ball and 2 strikes on Collins now. Blue Jays on top. 8-2, 2 out, bases empty. Bottom of the 7th inning. Sign earlier, Toronto loves Bobby Ball is what they're calling it right now, or at least the folks that made up that banner. What an exhibition in all facets of the game by the Blue Jays tonight.
Let's get back to that comparison between Bobby Cox and the late Gil Hodges as managers. Do you know that the Mets platooned even more, Gil did, in '69 than Bobby does? At second base, they platooned Kenny Boswell. You'll remember, and Al Weiss, whom you'll especially remember with that confounding home run against your team in '69. They platooned at third. They had Ed Charles, and they had Wayne Garrett.
Ed Charles was a tough out.
He was a tough out.
Willie Wilson leading off by lining it to right field, right at Jesse Barfield, who makes the catch for the out. So Clancy has now retired 7 straight. and he has set down 12 of the last 13.
They platooned Eddie Kranepool at first, you'll remember, with Don Clendenin. So there was that similar. Each man a low-key, kind of laid-back man, but absolutely staunch, rigid in their determination to exercise their wills, not give in to the players, have them play the way they want.
Well, that's true. There's no doubt about it. And I think Cox kind of mentioned that in that interview that we saw earlier tonight.
2 balls, no strikes to count on UL Washington. Remember, he went that 1 year without a toothpick, had an off season. Put it back in the following year, said it was the toughest decision he's ever had to make.
Well, his reason for not using it was he didn't want the kids of the United States to see it.
Right.
And it was a good thought on his part. But if it disturbed his concentration for not having it, and it did cause the bad year, I don't blame him for going back.
Keith Creel, who's really struggled, as you can see, 4 losses and an ERA of better than 7, loosening up in the pen. And Washington gets on. So UL is aboard, and we'll bring up George Brett. A reminder, next week, Monday Night Baseball. Check your local listings. You'll see either the Yankees at Texas, Baltimore against California. Earl and I will be in Arlington. Howard will be back in the Hamptons, accepting registrants for the Dockswin show, I'm sure.
Oh, you're not going to let that drop,
no.
are you?
No, sir. I love that picture.
It's about time you've got to understand the world of animals.
The world of animals? A swing and a miss.
I'd like to say something about this ball game. When I was sitting in that dugout in Kansas City, especially, where they play on artificial turf, and this is artificial turf here, I never felt safe with a 6-run lead in the 8th inning. Now, I don't know, but this ball club with the people, the Kansas City ball club with the people they got in the lineup, are certainly capable of making an uprising.
Brett gets Goodwood again, lines it to center, but Mosby makes the running catch, and his throw into first. Not in time. He almost caught Washington napping. So George Brett has lined out to right, doubled to right, homered to right, and now lines out to center.
And the amazing thing about this is what he got on the ball with that off-balance throw. Come close.
Second out of the inning. And with Washington at first, Hal McRae is the batter. 1-0. Final score, Houston beating Philadelphia 8-2. Phillies now dropping out of first place. Carlton gets beat again. He's 9-11. Cards idle move into first. And again, if you weren't with us earlier and haven't heard, Pat Corrales was fired today by Bill Giles as the Philadelphia manager, and at least temporarily replaced by the general manager, Paul Owens, who has prior managing experience with the Phillies. Carlton, by the way, had 5 strikeouts tonight. He was taken out in the 4th inning, and he's...
We welcome viewers who've been watching the Toronto-Kansas City game from Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. Here in Cleveland, 5-2 White Sox, but the Indians are alive here in the bottom half of the 8th inning. The batter is Mike Hargrove with Julio Franco, the sensational rookie shortstop, over at third base. Ron Hasse, who has already hit a 2-run home run tonight, over at first base, and nobody out in the Cleveland 8th inning. Juan Augusto, the 3rd pitcher of the night for the White Sox. I'm Don Chevrier along with Steve Stowe, as we see what the Indians can do with this rally here in the 8th inning at Cleveland Stadium.
Julio Franco led off the inning with a walk. Ron Hasse, his 2nd base hit of the night, single to left center field to put the runners at 1st and 3rd.
A 2-strike count to Hargrove. Outside, 1 ball and 2 strikes now. Lamar Hoyt, the starter, and the man who stands to win this game if Augusto can put out this Cleveland uprising. There is Tony La Russa, his team losing 3 of 4 to the Blue Jays at Comiskey Park on the weekend. Mike Ferrero in his first season with the Indians, indeed having a rough initial campaign in the big leagues as a manager. His team 15 games out of first place entering play tonight. The 1-2 offering just missed inside. The count even now. The keen veteran eye of Hargrove runs the count to 2-2.
Lamar Hoyt pitched a fine game for 7 innings. Manager Tony La Russa decided that on this warm, humid night in Cleveland, he had had enough. He went to his bullpen to Dick Tidrow, who faced only 2 hitters before Juan Augusto has come on.
Hargrove steps out. White Sox got a run in the first inning, and then they up their lead to 3 and a 2-run home run by Carlton Fisk in the 3rd inning. They added 2 more runs in the 4th for a 5-0 lead. Then Ron Hassey with a 2-run home run for the Indians the bottom half of the 5th. Brings us to where we are now in the 8th inning with nobody out. A 5-2 Chicago lead and a 2-2 count. Mike Hargrove. Into shallow center field. Rudy Law right there to take it in. Tag made, and Franco will score the 3rd Cleveland run. It's a 5-3 ball game with 1 out. RBI number 37 for Hargrove.
Hargrove battled Augusto until he got a pitch that he could hit to the outfield. Hit the ball well enough to Rudy Law so the 3rd run could score. Tony La Russa is coming out.
And he's going to make a change. Barajas, the Mexican, has been warming up in the Chicago bullpen. So there'll be the 4th pitcher of the night entering for the Chicago White Sox, trying to save what now is a 5-3 lead over the Indians here in Cleveland. That's the story here. We'll take viewers of the Toronto game back to Al Michaels at Exhibition Stadium.
All right, thank you, Don. And here, Martinez has just grounded out to short. While we were getting that report from Don Chevrier, Barfield led off the inning by flying to right against Keith Creel, the Kansas City pitcher who has come on in relief of Armstrong, and the crowd saluting Alfredo Griffin, who is 0 for 3 at the plate. But what they're saluting is a tremendous night in the field. He's made some unbelievable plays.
And he's certainly enjoying it. You see that smile on his face when he walks up to home plate. Things like this make you play better baseball.
Oh, yeah. Alfredo Griffin looks at a strike, and the count is 0-1. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, Earl Weaver in Toronto. 8-2, the Blue Jays on top, doing all their damage early. 5 runs in the 4th inning. And Willie Aikens will be leading things off as we go to the 9th inning. A reminder, Saturday on ABC, Wide World of Sports, Jeff Chandler, the unbeaten bantamweight champion, moves up super bantamweight class against Oscar Muniz. And then the special record holders mile, which you'll see live from London. Sebastian Coe, the world record holder in the mile. Steve Scott, who holds the American record. And Eamon Coughlin, who holds the world indoor best. All scheduled to compete in a possible 1,500-meter preview of what might take place at the Olympic Games in L.A. That's this Saturday on Wide World. Willie Aikens leads off here in the 9th inning. 0-1 the count. In the bullpen, that's Joey McLaughlin, but Clancy has shown no signs of tiring. Just in case, McLaughlin down there throwing. 0-2.
He looks like he wants a complete game now.
Clancy pitched well last week against Kansas City. He lost. Strangely enough, he lost because his defense betrayed him. One of the few times this season, Griffin and Garcia made the errors that did him in last week. But I think Alfredo has atoned for it a little bit tonight.
I would say so.
It's ironic, though, to think back that 5 days ago he loses a game because of an error by his shortstop.
Well, last inning when he walked when Clancy walked UL Washington.
Aikens reaches out and hits it in the air to deep left field and foul, just foul. And Cleveland scored, by the way, now at the end of 8. We have the update, and the Indians settled for the 1 run in the 8th inning, 5-3 there. Houston over Philadelphia, 8-2. And Atlanta now leads New York 6-4 in the 7th inning. This telecast, presented by authority of Major League Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. And you're going to read that next week, Earl.
I don't
You're ready.
know.
You're ready. Come on
All
now.
right.
Interesting to watch the White Sox surge. You know, Earl, the most underpublicized, unnoticed trade of the year. Changed the whole look of the White Sox. Getting Cruz for second base in exchange for Bernazard.
Fly ball to center field, and Mosby, who's been busy, makes the catch. 3 straight putouts for Lloyd, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the game for him.
Bernazard having great difficulty with the double play, playing the position ever since he was hurt almost self-protectively, with Cruz one of the great ones at the execution of the double play.
I'll have to agree with you, Howard. And Cruz has great range also, and the fact that he can steal so many bases has to be an asset to a ball club.
Amos Otis fouls it away. 0-1. Crowd tonight is 26,178 in a stadium that holds 43,000 for baseball. Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. It's been rocking tonight. 1-1.
And their ball club gave them a reason to rock also.
8 runs, 9 hits, and no errors for Toronto. 2 runs, 5 hits, 1 error for Kansas City. Mullinex to Collins. 2 down.
Just one game of 162. As Earl has noted constantly tonight, this Kansas City team is loaded with fine players. Tonight's loss won't change their pennant outlook. Their pitching gets straightened away. As George Brett said, they could run away in the American League West. But a very special one game out of 162 for the city of Toronto. Its people, its fans, and for the Toronto Blue Jays. Yes, a very special night, because they have done on this occasion everything right. And they wanted America to see them doing just that. And look at the way it's going to end.
Mullinex to Collins, scooping it out. And that's very appropriate, because it was like that from beginning to end for the Toronto Blue Jays. Listen to the crowd. To be with us next Monday night on ABC, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, for the game to be shown in your area. Either the New York Yankees against the Texas Rangers, or the Baltimore Orioles taking on the California Angels. The executive producer of ABC Sports is Roone Arledge. Coverage of tonight's game was produced by Dennis Lewin, directed by Chet Forty. Pre-game. We return to Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. A crowd of better than 26,000 looked on tonight. The Blue Jays did everything right. Offense, defense, pitching, win the game 8-2. Jim Clancy all the way. Gurra was the losing pitcher. And the night belonged on defense to Alfredo Griffin, the Blue Jay shortstop. Oh, look here at a play. Willie Wilson hitting a ground ball in the 7th inning. One of several sparkling plays turned in by Griffin to his left, throwing off balance, throwing and getting him at first base. And we have Alfredo Griffin in the dugout. And Alfredo, the people around the country watching you for the first time tonight, I'm sure learned a lot about Griffin, learned a lot about what you can do, must think that this is something that happens every night. Where would you rank this in terms of the nights you have had through your career defensively anyway?
Well, I think this is one of the best nights I ever had playing this game. I feel, I make some good plays, and I can remember any other night that I play better than tonight.
Alfredo, when you walked to home plate the last time, you got a little standing ovation. In fact, they didn't want to quit cheering on your second great play, the one that you made to the left. How did you feel when you walked up to home plate in the pennant race, and you've got the people excited? They were standing cheering for you. What does that feel like?
Well, it makes me feel like, I'm already in the playoff, like we're playing the World Series right now, you get me so excited. It just makes me think I'm in there right now.
Are you enjoying the pennant race after not being in it for a number of years?
Oh yeah, I'm enjoying everything this year so far, and I like to, that we stay in there, so we could, I could find out what kind of player I am.
I'm sure it's a lot more fun to come to, here's another one he plays, but I'm sure it's a lot more fun to come to the ballpark now than it was a couple years ago, isn't it?
Well, I've been here for 5 years now, and I can tell the difference. It's a big difference. Before you used to come, and you listen to nobody in the stand talking. Now everybody just going crazy in the town.
And thank the good Lord you don't have to hear Weaver yelling at you from the Baltimore dugout when you play them.
I never yelled at that man. I used to save it for the umpires, didn't I, Alfredo?
That's right. I always like Weaver. I like the way, Weaver acting the field and I like kind of manager. I know if I had a chance, I don't think I have a chance right now, but you never know.
Well, you got a good manager right now, and he's doing an outstanding job with your ball club.
That's right. Bobby Cox, it means a lot to me because he let me play the game, relax. He never get on me when I mess up, and that's good. You never get nervous or nothing playing the game. So I like the way he handles things around here.
Alfredo, there's a fella behind you, of course, and we've all heard a lot about this young shortstop that the Jays have in their minor league system, Fernandez. Is that something that spurs you on, perhaps, to greater heights, knowing you've got somebody right there at your heels?
Well, I don't worry about Fernandez because if I keep worrying about Fernandez, I'm going to got to worry about Fernandez and worry about staying here and playing the game. I just come here and play my game natural because I can't get no pressure on myself. I got to just, relax and play the game. Fernandez got to come over here and take my job. I've been here for 5 years. He got to improve himself up here. He's going to be a hell of a ball player. I see him playing winning ball this year, and he showed me a lot. He can play this game, too.
A few more nights like tonight, and you don't have to worry about your job. I'm
no,
sure
I don't think Alfredo's going to have to worry about it. I watched the improvement from the time he come to the big leagues. A couple of those off-balance throws that you made tonight, maybe 3-4 years ago, wouldn't be as accurate. They were going into the dugout or into the stands. Don't you think just the experience you have has helped tremendously?
Well, I agree with you, but I got to thank Aurelio Rodriguez. He worked with me the little time he had with us in spring training, and he taught, he teach me how to throw the ball to first base, and he helped me a lot getting the angle for throw the ball to first base. That helped me a lot. It's true what you say, in the past year, those balls been in the dugout because I have no idea where to throw the ball.
Well, Aurelio is one of the great teachers.
That's right.
Good ball player.
Yep.
Okay, we thank you very much, Alfredo. Again, congratulations on a tremendous night.
Thank you very much.
You were great, my friend. Good luck to you.
Alfredo Griffin. A quick look at scores now to update you. Ninth inning, Chicago leads Cleveland 5-3. The Yankees beat Minnesota. Milwaukee knocked off Texas in Game 1, and the Rangers lead 2-1 fourth inning Game 2. Red Sox, Angels, Detroit, Oakland just underway. Baltimore, Seattle. It's 4-0 Baltimore in the first inning at the Kingdome. And in the National League, we're only 2 games. We're on the schedule today. Houston remains red hot, beats Philadelphia Stadium. The Toronto Blue Jays 8, and the Kansas City Royals 2. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, Earl Weaver, good night from Toronto.